Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this faculty lecture talk by Dr. Frank Mashburn. It's our third of the semester. The next one coming up will be in February, so we hope you join us then for Dr. Annie Gray's Just in Time for Valentine's Day, talking about love. So that'll be in February. But today I want to welcome, please join me in welcoming Dr. Frank Mashburn. Yeah.
Okay, is this on? Can you hear me? Welcome to version 2 of this talk. Years ago, version 1 was given. There were like 4 or 5 people here. If I see one of them, if you were here from that one years ago, can you raise your hand? Yep. Okay, so this version 2 is better because of your questions at the end. And there will be questions at the end of this one too. So if you got forced to be here by your teacher, after like 60% of the time is over, you can be cut loose and it's through, and then it'll be questions for everybody that wants to stay. So how does that sound? All right, so I wanted to start with one of my favorite jokes because I made it up. And thank you. And I think I made it up. I'm thinking that probably I made it up. But it is, how many philosophers does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is, we don't know. It depends on who counts as a philosopher and whether it's a phenomenal light bulb or a noumenal light bulb, or what do you want to say many means there? Are numbers real or are they not? We don't know. You may have thought that I might have been a weird kid when I was little, and that is somewhat true. I remember when I was young and maybe in elementary school, and I looked at myself in a mirror for a really long time. Have you ever done that? Looked at your face for a long time? I wouldn't recommend it. And so I looked and I kept thinking, who is that? What is that? What is that thinking? Is that really me looking back? Or what is that looking back? And all of a sudden I started spinning down this rabbit hole, and I ran to the kitchen and I said to my mom, Mom, I think I'm going crazy. And she gave me a hug and said, No, you're not going crazy. Have a cookie. Whatever. And so this talk isn't to make you spin down a rabbit hole to think you're going crazy. The goal of this talk is to reawaken you to the awe and wonder of everyday life around you. If you do find yourself spinning down a rabbit hole, go have a cookie and find somebody to hug. Okay. Having said that, the talk today is the matter with matter, why reality is stranger than you think it is. You might think, I know what reality is. Reality is stuff you can bump into. Reality is that's what reality is. It turns out that it's a little stranger than you thought. What's an interesting way to get into this is to look at what some thinkers have thought in the past about this. What's made of matter? Well, part of reality is matter, and matter is maybe the place to start thinking about reality. So we're not going to be talking about all of reality yet in just 30 or 40 minutes. We're just starting somewhere. We'll start with matter, since most people think it's stuff that you run into that's real. Trees are made of matter. Buildings are made of matter. Animals are made of matter. Clickers are made of matter. Clickers that work are made of matter. Come on. Stars and galaxies are made of matter. People are made of matter. Flowers are made of matter. It looks like everything around. We're just talking about everything. Now, we could start with thinkers all over the world, but sometimes we start with the Greeks. We're going to look at some pre-Socratic Greek philosophers who started thinking about this. What is matter? Some of them were called monists, not to be confused with a different type of monism, that there's only one thing. But these kind of people thought that matter, whatever it is made up of one thing, and then it coagulates up kind of from there. For instance, Thales thought, if the fragments we have of Thales are right, that it was water. Why would Thales think that everything was made of water? Because it has this gaseous stage, this liquid stage, this solid stage. It makes sense if you think about that. There were other thinkers that thought air maybe, or fire, Heraclitus, famous for you never step in the same river twice. That Heraclitus thought fire maybe. Anaximander thought it was the apeiron of something, but we don't know what that thing is. But while these guys are trying to get at reality through matter, through what it's made of, there were others that thought, clicker, come on, work. No. Others that were called the pluralist. And they thought, why does it have to be made of one thing? Down at the bottom, maybe it could be more than one thing. Down at the bottom, like maybe 4 things, or maybe something like atoms, Leucippus or Democritus, and this idea that there's atoms, something uncuttable. That's what it meant, just these gobs and gobs of these different things that are just out there that just you can't get any smaller. They're not thinking of atoms like atomic theory today with protons, neutrons, electrons, just something uncuttable. So you have this kind of debate between the monists and the pluralists about what everything's made up of. Coming to later, I thought, what's the best way to update this since then? And I thought, well, something that's close to all yourselves is your heart. Let's try to get at what you are through what your heart is made of. What's your heart made of? So your heart's made up of, that's your favorite internal organ probably. Let's see if this clicker is going to work. That's not right. Oh, there's your heart. There's your heart on philosophy. Okay, and it's, muscle tissue, it's tissue, and the tissue is made of cells. And they didn't know that for a lot of human history, but just think of the first person to see that. The cells are made up of molecules, and the molecules are made up of atoms, and the atoms are made up of subatomic particles. Come on, clicker. Subatomic particles. And the atoms are mostly space. Did you know that? Right? Like if you were in the magic school bus and you're the size of an electron and you're flying toward the nucleus, it's going to take you a long time to get to the nucleus because atoms are mostly space. So is that you? You're made of atoms joined on, say, electron shell energy levels, and you're mostly space? Is that you? You don't look like mostly space. But the protons, neutrons, electrons are made of, what's a fun question to ask somebody is what's an electron made of? Do you believe in electrons? Oh, you do? Has anybody ever seen an electron? No, electrons are theoretical entities. You can't see them because they're too small. But let's start with I didn't tell you there's no such thing as electrons. Did you hear me say that? I just asked you if you've seen one. Let's talk about the protons. The protons are made of, well, you might think, get this to work, quarks or something else, or it's looking for this elementary particle. There's still that move to try to get to something elementary. If you're a string theorist or whatever, you could. But philosophers have noticed for many, many, many years, how long can you continue this process of asking what it's made of? Well, if it's a particle, that means in philosophy talks, what something extended in space. If it's a particle, it takes up space. It's extended in space. So how long can you keep asking this question? So you say, well, I've got the smallest thing, and we'll call it particle Z. And the next question is going to be, is particle Z a particle? Yeah, that's why we call it particle Z, because it's a particle. Does particle take up space? Yeah. Well, what takes up half that space? And everything okay?
I'm sorry, but if your clicker's not working, here's a back.
Oh, okay, thank you. What takes up half that space? And you can keep going, to whatever you have, and you can divide, and it looks like you can go to infinity. It's called the infinite regress problem. And it turns out that there's also a problem the other way as you go further away from us into external reality outside of you. You think, well, we can go here, out of the state to the country to the world, to the solar system, to the galaxy, to the other galaxies. How long does it keep going? Well, the Big Bang, it creates time and space as it expands outward. Expands outward into what? Into nothing. Nothing is hard in philosophy to get a definition of nothing. Can you believe that? Close your eyes and imagine nothing. Nobody's closing their eyes. Close your eyes and imagine nothing. You're thinking of something. You're thinking of a color, or it's black or gray or white, or you've got something. Nothing is something that would have no properties. But if something has the property of being able to receive an expansion, it's not nothing. It's something. Turns out there's a really fun thing on the internet. Where is this? Before we get to that, there's some really fun NOVA series looking at going outward from us. The Decoding the Universe Cosmos NOVA episode is on going outward from us. And there's another one that just came out last week. Did anybody see it? Came out Wednesday on Decoding the Universe Quantum, going the other way. And it starts to make you reawaken to the wonder of where we are in the middle between these seemingly infinite outward of us and below us. And they're really great. If I want to recommend those to you. The Decoding the Universe Quantum begins really with this hilarious warning. Warning, the following NOVA program contains scenes of quantum physics, which is known to cause confusion, anxiety, and heartbreak. Please see your physicist if symptoms persist. So that's how the Decoding the Universe Quantum begins. But so we seem to be, let's see if this works. Hey, it works. We seem to be kind of perched somewhere in between these two infinities, one above us and one below us. And depending upon where you want to locate yourself on this continuum, reality looks differently. For instance, say I'm me, pretend I'm me, and I'm walking toward this thermos and I go, it's solid, this is a thermos. Let's put me here. Why there? Okay, let's put me here. Okay, so put me here. And then, but say I was the size of the Magic School Bus and I'm flying into this thermos, is it going to be solid? No, the scale's different. It's going to look, if you could say you had ability to see being that small, it would look like mostly space, right? But say you were a huge entity like the size of the solar system or something, kind of like the beings playing some game at the end of Men in Black and they're rolling the dice. Remember that with the universe? Is this going to be solid to you? No, but it's solid to us here, And you go, well, that's kind of curious. Let's keep going and see where this goes from here. One more thing I want to recommend to you, the 2013 Isaac Asimov Memorial Debate that is moderated by Neil deGrasse Tyson is on the nature of nothing, and they're trying to get at what is nothing. Best definition of nothing I ever heard is it's what rocks dream about. But it's hard to get a definition of nothing, and this panel of scientists and a philosophy guy right here, and maybe a journalist and scientists, they're going to debate trying to get a definition of nothing. What is nothing? If you say everything came from nothing, but what properties would have propelled something to come from nothing? And then it would have the property of being able to cause itself into existence, but it have to exist before it exists. And it's really, really fun. You might want to guess what they're going to conclude right here at the end. Can anybody guess? They're not going to. We'll see. You don't want to spoil it for you. But anyway, that's another thing that's fun to watch, and that's where it would be if you get this online. Okay, so some people say, well, you're going at this all wrong because you're trying to get this infinite divisibility problem of matter, but I'm not going to explain it that way. I'm going to say that matter is energy because E equals mc squared, and there's this relationship between matter and energy. It's just the same thing. It's just different forms of the same thing. Now, that can work fine in some physics models and physics theories and works well for us in understanding regularities. But in philosophy, for something to be identical, it has to have the same properties, in order to be identical. If one of them has properties it doesn't want to have, they can't be identical on some versions of what identity means. So if matter is something that's extended in space, and energy is something that's the ability to do work or forces or that kind of thing that's not extended in space, then they can't be philosophically the same thing. They're different things. You might say, well, there's something up here that can be either in this or even in this. And then the next question is going to be, well, what is that? But fun way to get into this thing is, let's see what I can drop. So about energy not being extended in space, in graduate school, this came up in a couple of ways. We're just going to conflate them. So see this, everybody see this pen? This is a pen, big pen. I'm about to do a science experiment here. Don't try this at home. I'm a professional. And so here we go. Ready? Here, we're going to go. All right, wait. Oh, you do it again. Oh, my goodness. All right, watch. Wait, don't go away. Oh, how many times can we keep doing this? Oh, wow, it's going to be really, really, really regular. So what is it that's doing this? You want to say gravity. All right, so is there something pulling on this? Is there something pushing this? Is there something like, on a space-time fabric that mass is bending and that's causing this? There's different theories of what gravity is. But I remember one of my professors was asked, well, how much space does force of gravity take up? And he said, how much space does the force of gravity take up? And how is that a question, That you're getting at those intuitions again about these differences between this and this. So stumbling on that fun thing, I thought a fun way to start to keep going is to talk about this tree. Let's go backwards. This tree, which one? I don't want to accidentally shine it. This tree, who knows this tree? It's right outside of Goen's building. This is anybody know what kind? It's a ginkgo tree. Yeah, it's a ginkgo tree. So what's the reality of this tree? Let's play with this for a little bit. Okay. There's the tree for our purposes. We're going to talk about this tree, and we're going to try to get, what are these properties of the tree? Well, what some thinkers have noticed is what's happening when you look at that tree is that there's something over here that let's call the real tree. Is that all right with everybody? The real tree. And then there's this curtain of our five senses that blocks us between direct contact with the real tree. And then something, let's call it sense data. Is it okay to call it sense data? Something is coming from the real tree through the curtain, goes through our sensory capacities, through nerves, gets translated into electrical impulses, and gets reconstituted over here in your brain as the idea of the tree. Right? Everybody with me? No magic, hocus pocus, that's what's happening. Now, you can actually learn to draw this on a napkin and have fun with your family and friends. You should all know how to do this at the end of this. All right. So, all right. Well, the fun implications of this is that nobody ever has direct contact with the real tree. You always have mediated contact through the tree, through the senses you have, through the curtain, and then reconstitute it as idea of a tree. So actually, you're interacting with this more than you're interacting with this. You're like, well, it doesn't seem like that. Yeah, I know. It's happening really, 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 really fast. What, near the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, happening really, really fast, but still, you don't ever have direct contact with the tree. And nobody ever has. No human ever has, because of this issue. Now, what some people have noticed is, on top of this, if you were a being that had less senses, instead of 5 less and different cognitive faculties, this would look different to you, to have a different idea of a tree, right? So if, say, you were a giraffe or a dog or a snail or a mollusk or something has different cognitive faculties, is going to grid this differently, right? Can we all go for that? Thomas Nagel had a really fun philosophy article called "What is it like to be a bat?" And it's on consciousness and subjective, inner subjective and objective things about. And he says, after like pages and pages of all this, guess what he concludes at the end? We don't know. You'd have to be a bat. But at least you can say that a bat would see, if bats, the way bats see, echo, or whatever, is going to be different than the way you see because of the way the sense data gets gridded through the kind of limited faculties we have, right? Similarly, if you had more senses, like say you had 21 senses instead of 5, you're an alien or something, and angel if angels exist, and then you have more senses, more cognitive faculties. You can see maybe auras and waves that the rest of us can't see. I mean, you would see this differently than we do. We see it the way we see it because it's being gridded through our senses the way beings like us grid them. So instead of saying, I see the tree, maybe it'd be more appropriate to say, I am being appeared to treely. Do you like that? But anyway, so thinkers have wondered let's go back to this a minute. What is this though? I want to know what this is. What's the real tree? So people have tried to get at that by saying, well, there's a representation theory that, hey, you know, as long as our representation of it in our mind is an accurate expression of the tree, we'll take that as seeing the tree. The representational theory of that, your idea represents it. The question comes up, well, how does an idea represent it, and how would you know, what would it take to know if your idea of the tree represents accurately the real tree? What would it take? Think about that for a minute. I mean, how many properties can this thing have? How many senses might you need to have? What kind of cognitive faculties to get our instruments extend our cognitive faculties and senses a little bit so we can see there's a lot more out there than we can normally see. So there's lots of reason to believe that this has a lot more properties than we can get at. But how would you know whether your representation accurately represents this? It seems like you have to get out of this, come over here, acquire as many senses and cognitive faculties as you need to apprehend it in its exhaustive totality, come back here and try to remember what you had. And you see the problem? All right, so what can we do past that, maybe, past the representation idea? Well, we did that. Oh, this is really fun. Should I go ahead and do this?
You might as well. I'm seeing
All right, so this one you can do on a napkin too. And so here's, some people have said, and I won't mention which philosopher it is because a bunch of them all, I'm just trying to make it more general, but some have said, okay, there's something over here, we'll call it the ding on seek maybe, or the thing in itself. But there's something over here that's the grist for the mill that we can grid. But say here's something real, and so this is a cable with electricity in it. That's electricity. I know you all knew that already. And so this is going to a old black and white TV. This is going to a color TV. Any of you remember the first color TVs you saw that were like green and pink and that kind of thing? That's this, okay? This is like a more advanced TV. Here's a bigger, plasma TV. Here's like HD TV, really big on your wall. I dream in HD. Do you know how I know that? I saw the water droplets on the screen, showing how good the TV is in my dream. I saw that and I woke up and I thought, wow, I dream in HD. But can anybody guess what TV show we're watching? Huh?
We're watching a show about matter.
Good. I should have done that. It's The Walking Dead. There's a zombie is after you. Here's you running away. Here's the tree. There's the tree in the middle of you, between you and the zombie. But can anybody guess the point behind this? You're like, oh my goodness, no. There's no way I can get. Why? What is this trying to show?
The more that we're able to see.
Good. The more we're using the increase of technology to represent an increase in sensory ability or senses or cognitive faculties, they're going to grid this reality different depending on what kind of apparatus you're using to look at, right? So if you say, well, what's the space between the zombie here and you here? It looks like you can get away, hopefully. There's some space in between you and the zombie. There's a tree in between us, good. How much space is between you and the zombie here? Well, it's grid differently, The idea is that some philosophers are going to say, this might make you think of Kant, time and space and those kind of things aren't out here, they're in here. And so if you want to ask, what's the space like between us before it gets gridded? I mean, you can ask that even here before you get to here. And so what's the space between you and the zombie here? Oh, that's a good question. Before it gets gridded in the grist for the mill, what does the tree look like? You got that? Everybody with me? If for all we know, this side could look like that before it gets gridded to the way we see it. Now, what does that clock say? That's not really the time, is it? Is it 10 after? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to talk really fast for the rest of it. All right. So some philosophers said, well, I think we can do better and we can get closer to what it might be. Here, there's some substance over here, the real tree, and we're going to say it has primary qualities and secondary qualities. Secondary qualities are things that depend upon a perceiver for the thing to have it, that quality. For instance, this blue pen, where's the blue? You want to say the blue's in the pen, but if it were under a different kind of light, it might look different. At the bottom of the ocean, it might look different. If you were the size of the Magic School Bus, it would look different. The color is not in the pen. The color is in here, right. So the pen in this one wouldn't have color as a primary property. Primary properties are properties the thing has regardless of whether there's a perceiver or not. Secondary qualities are things the thing has because of its relational properties with perceiver. If you see a pink-orange cloud as the sun's going down and it's so pretty, is the color in the cloud, well, if you flew into the cloud, would you see the pink? And no, the cloud doesn't have that as a primary property, it's a secondary property. Everybody with me that it's okay that color is a secondary property? And sound and taste and feeling. And one philosopher is going to say to another philosopher, well, when you get a pail of warm water, the warmth is in the water. And then the other philosopher says, okay, on a cold day, put a glove on one hand and not on the other hand and put them both in the water. And yeah, the feel is going to be a relational property. If there's no beings that have taste buds and there are only rocks, there aren't taste, these are secondary properties. But some philosophers, like Locke, John Locke, thought that whatever this is over here, he calls it substance, which means I know not what it is, but it's something there. He says it has these primary qualities. It has a shape that it takes up space, and it's either solid or liquid or not solid, and it's either in motion or at rest. So the idea is if all of us went out of the room, this pen still has the shape it has, the amount of space it takes up, and is solid or not solid or that kind of thing. That's the idea, that there are these objective primary properties of this bit of matter, and it has them regardless of any perceivers. Now, what happened was some people came along and posited some kind of idealism. There's different kinds of idealists. We're going to interact with a Berkeleyan form here. We already looked at a little bit of Kantian transcendental idealism, but these kind of people want to say, oh, let's go back before we get objections. They want to say, all right, the same things that you did to the secondary qualities, you can do to the primary qualities. Let's do an easy one first. We want to say the thermos is solid whether we're in here or not, but once again, remember the magic school bus flying into it? It doesn't have those properties without the perceiver. The shape that it has, you want to say, well, that's flat whether we're here or not. All of us could leave the room and this is still flat. And Berkeley asked in one of his dialogues, oh, really, if you look at it with a microscope, it's flat? You see what's going to happen, right, to those properties. So motion, whether it's in motion or at rest, all right, so I'm going to stand here and not move. So am I at motion or am I at rest? Well, I'm on the Earth, and the galaxy is moving. These depends on your take on whether it's that is dependent on perceiver. And looks like all these primary qualities start to move over here to secondary qualities. And then you start thinking of, well, maybe extension, it takes up the space it takes up regardless of whether any perceiver is perceiving it or not. And then the question of that is, well, first, which theory of space are you using? Because there are different theories of space. But another thing you could say is extension, our ideas of extension apply to things that are over here. We think of an apple that has this shape or this, how much space it takes up. Quick way to see this one disappear is just think about the ruler that you're using to measure it. It's going to have secondary properties that are, same thing is going to happen to it. It's going to disappear the same way. It turns out that all these primary properties are going to collapse into secondary properties. Now, what was the definition of secondary properties again? Things that depend upon a perceiver to exist, and some forms of idealism are going to say, therefore, nothing exists without a perceiver. So there's no such thing as matter all the way down if you're thinking of some hard little billiard balls or something that just coagulate and make everything so firm. There's nothing like that. It only took us 30 minutes to see there's nothing like that. But you say, but we have this phenomenal awareness that it's like that. Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. You can have a phenomenal awareness of something that works just fine. What time did the sun come up today? Trick question. What time did the earth turn today to where, if you ask somebody when was sunrise today and they said, no, you should have said earth turn, that would be really weird, you know, because we all have this phenomenal experience of it, even though you can have a deeper account of it. That's okay. But Berkeley is going to say nothing exists unless it has a perceiver. Now, one guy, supposedly Samuel Johnson, went to refute Berkeley and kicked a rock and said, I just refuted Berkeley. I just kicked a rock and it really hurt. But does that refute Berkeley? Berkeley didn't say he wasn't going to phenomenally feel like he kicked a rock and it wasn't really going to hurt. He just said it's not made of matter all the way down and it's going to be all have secondary properties. It doesn't exist without a perceiver. So what kind of objections come up, though, against this form of idealism? Berkeley is going to say, what's over here? What's the difference between something over here that has no primary properties, only secondary properties, and nothing over here unless there's a perceiver? So there's no difference. And so Berkeley's going to say there is nothing over here without a perceiver. Everything is over here. Welcome to idealism. So we've kind of looked through materialism. We could have spent some more time in some forms of dualism, and now we've ended up with idealism. But let's end with some common questions about idealism before we get to your questions. One is, it's against common sense. Nobody can live like this. You know, I live like science tells me people are, not how this immaterial thing. Oh, really? You interact with people like they're mostly space on the electron shell level joined together? That's how you interact with people? You're interacting with people on the phenomenal level. Another one is, so nothing is real? Did Berkeley ever say nothing is real? No, he said it's real, it's just not made of what you think it's made of. Another one is, so God's doing all this? We don't have time to get into this. Ask me back. Ask me back for that one. But basically, before Berkeley talks about God, he talks about, people say, so if all of us leave the room, so the thermos isn't here anymore. And he's like, no, we see that we can do science and we can talk about things that we commonly share. There must be some big P perceiver keeping our little p perceptions all in play. Kind of like the Matrix, if you've seen the Matrix, but with a, not a malevolent machine at the top. But he's not making an argument for God yet. He's going to get there later, but he is making an argument that there's a big P perceiver keeping everything in play. If the big P perceiver isn't thinking of you right now, you wouldn't be here. And that accounts for why we can do the science we do with the regularities we perceive on this side of the curtain. Remember, our science is on this side of the curtain with the regularities we perceive, making models from the best we can do with the cognitive faculties and senses we have. And so Berkeley's trying to find a firmer foundation for doing that science and those regularities together, and he thinks he's got it. Now, so what's the matter with matter? Well, we've looked at the infinite divisibility problem, the difference from energy problem, the limited situatedness problem, depends on how big or small you are, and the disappearing primary qualities problem. But what I wanted you to get out of this is that maybe like me, you got up this morning, I looked at the mirror in my face and I thought, oh, there's my face. What can I do about that? And washed my face and got in my ordinary car and came to my ordinary job and ordinary matter. And no, you live in a much more mysterious, non-boring place than that. And if you want to test that, go outside to that ginkgo tree and explain this leaf. And as you get down as far as you can, we'll see if you still think it's a boring world. Thank you so much. So we can cut them loose for questions. The mic. All right, I think we have a little time for questions. Before we do the questions and before people leave, I just want to say, can y'all thank the people that put this together, the faculty lecture series, that's Trent and Rob and Shelley. They've done so much work. I was looking at all these posters of me all around campus, and I thought, who is this guy? He better be good. You know.
You have a question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was.
No, it's your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I was told to ask, what is a question?
Oh,
Yeah.
your question is, what is a question?
Yeah, I was told to ask this by a very smart man.
That's a really good question. What do you think I should say? It depends on who you are, and
I don't know, man.
what a question. See, very good question. All right, so go ahead.
Can a perceiver perceive themselves?
Can a perceiver perceive themselves? It depends on, all right, so if I'm a perceiver, let's say under Berkeley's scheme, there's a big P perceiver that's made little p perceivers. There's no reason the big P perceiver can't create the little p perceiver to not have perceptions when appropriate.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. If everything's definition is fluid and has exceptions, is everything we say by default false? Because you're saying that things change over time, and the fact that there's like no literal definition, is everything that we just say false in regards to the item?
In regard to items, it's not for like Locke or Kant or we'll say Berkeley, from Berkeley,
Yeah.
it's not false. You're having the perceptions you're supposed to have for the being that you are. I mean, if you were supposed to be a giraffe, you'll see it the way a giraffe's supposed to see it. If I'm a angel, I'm seeing it the way angels are supposed to see it. If I'm a human, I'm seeing it the way humans are supposed to see it. This is the way, so it's not false. There's a deeper account of what it is. It's kind of like somebody's talked about, if you go out, somebody goes out and they find a cell phone out in the lobby, and they've never seen a phone, and they start plunking around them, and they go, oh, you can play games on it. And you're playing a game on it, and they play on it for like 5 years, and they think they know what a phone is, and then one day they take the back off, and they go, oh my gosh, there's a deeper account for what the phone is than they thought. So it's not false, it's just there's a deeper account to explain. But these are real, you're seeing these manifestations the way you're supposed to see them for the being. When you look at that tree for Berkeley, you're seeing it the way God wants you to see a tree as a human. Thank you. That's a great question.
Earlier you said that direct contact with the tree is impossible due to you using the curtain to
Yeah, the
perceive it.
curtain separates us from the real tree in a way.
If you were to consume the tree, at the exact moment that the tree is then digested, it is theoretically you. It's more matter that is you. Could you then have direct contact to the tree?
You don't even have direct contact with the food that's in your stomach. You're just going to have to sense that the same way and have an idea of the food that's in your stomach when you taste it. You're going to have the same problem no matter where the tree's located. You're still you're still interacting with ideas of the thing rather than the thing.
So if you have an animal, let's say that it can't perceive itself, but it perceives other things, does that mean that the things around it exist, but it does not exist because it's not being perceived if it's not near a perceiver?
My dog's name is Brinkley. And I was looking at Brinkley the other day, and he came out frolicking around, chasing squirrels or having fun, and I just thought, he doesn't even think about who he is or what he's doing or why this is fun or that he's got brown curly hair, or that he looks like, an Ewok or something. And he's not thinking any of that. He's just kind of enjoying this infinite things up and low below us at this razor's edge between these two infinities, just enjoying that's all he does. And then I thought, well, I'm kind of more like Brinkley in that I'm not explaining that all the way down either. So Brinkley could be created to have the perceptions he's supposed to have as a dog. And if I were a dog, I'd have those too. But he's not perceiving them wrong just because he's not, when he sees this, he doesn't see a thermos with tea in it. He just sees something he can chase if I throw it. But that's not wrong because he's seeing it the way he's supposed to see it. Does that help?
I don't feel like that fully answered the question.
See how that answered my question, and that's all I'm worried about. So,
So, when you talked about nothing and how things actually came from the nothing, like the Big Bang, would you say that nothing is actually an illusion based on how we perceive things, and there's no nothing and instead always is something?
ooh, that's a good question. Let's see how I can translate this into something I want to talk about. One of my friends was talking to me one time, and he said, hey, look, Frank, you did it again. And I said, what? And he said, I was talking about me, and you found a way to make it about you. And I thought, okay. But anyway, so nothing. All right, so there's all these ideas about, did something come from nothing, or can something come from nothing? You're going to have to get a good definition of nothing to talk about that. Did everything come from nothing and then expand outward into what? That has properties of being a receptacle that can receive something. It goes all the way back to Plato. Is there a Big Bang expanding, and then, depending on what dark matter and dark energy does, that propels galaxies out to whatever, if it all, gravity brings it all back together, and you got the big crunch, and then it expands again, can it just keep doing that? And so it never began anyway, it just has this big expansion and big crunch. Or what would that be? And so when people talk about nothing, that's one of the things they're going to wrestle with is, all right, well, let's play with the idea that the Big Bang came from nothing or a singularity point, well, then where'd the singularity point come from, and what are the laws that make it explode? Are those already there? That'd be something that's ahead of time, and then you have something that can exist before it exists in some way if it can generate itself, and you get all these problems like that. It's also going to get into sticky issues about what space is and what time is, and space-time related. You're going to get into all these. You won't believe how your very good question that seems like it has an answer immediately explodes into a wild array of interesting theories about nothing. Let's see if I can. Okay. One more? Okay.
Okay, I don't know if it's really a question. It follows up on something that was said earlier, though. This idea of like perceiving an outside world, but not perceiving yourself, which is really kind of hard for me, at least, to wrap my head around how that would even be. And I think all I really wanted to say there was there's a difference between having perception as a thing in the world. Like if you step on a dog's tail, the dog can bark at you or maybe bite you or jump up and cower in the corner or do whatever the dog does depending on who that dog is. That dog doesn't need to have a concept of itself or you to feel what it feels. So I think one of the things that make a thing like this hard for us humans to get our head around is that we confuse having a concept of a thing for the thing.
Yeah, okay, good. Now, a lot of this talk has been about what some philosophers call external reality, reality external to us. Internal reality is like awareness and consciousness and introspection. And so I thought about, if you asked me back again, instead of doing the matter with matter, I could do consciousness about consciousness. That'd be the next place to go, looking at another world of astonishing, amazing, wonderful things that also reawaken your sense of wonder from this blah world you thought you lived in.
Please join me in thanking Dr. Frank Mashburn.
Thank you.